Alrighty then, welcome one and all. I am the Aromantic Shipper, coming at you today with yet another video, this time part 3 of my Walking Dead rewrite. This video will be covering the show content starting with the Grady Memorial arc in Season 5 all the way to the death of Glenn and Abraham in Season 7. Speaking of which, there will of course be major spoilers for both the Walking Dead AMC show and the comic book created by Robert Kirkman, so you have been warned. Also, in order to understand some of the changes and additions I make, it would be best to go back and watch parts 1 and 2 of my Walking Dead rewrite series before watching this video. But anyway, let's just get into it already. Alright, so let's just get one thing out of the way first. How am I going to handle the Grady Memorial arc in my rewrite? Now, many people are often quick to point out that the episodes focusing on that location are dull, confusing, and downright pointless, with many saying that the arc should have just been skipped altogether, especially considering it wasn't even in the comic books. However, while I do agree that the Grady Memorial arc wasn't handled all that well, and didn't have much importance in the grand scheme of things, I do think it had the potential to be great, and I like the idea of the group visiting Atlanta one last time before they journeyed to Virginia. I am going to keep the arc in my rewrite and workshop it to make it a lot better and have more importance after it is finished. My rewrite has already gone through 6 seasons by now, and Season 7 of it would cover the Grady Memorial arc, Shire Estates, named something different in my rewrite since I added Wiltshire Estates from the comic book in my rewrite of Season 3, and will end with the group getting into Alexandria. It will consist of 14 episodes covering the content from the middle 9 episodes of Season 5. As you have no doubt noticed by this point, my rewrites have been changing the places where seasons begin and end, and I'm doing that because the Walking Dead series has had some really odd and unsatisfying starting and ending points throughout its run, with many of its finales feeling like they are the beginning of a season rather than the end, and many premieres feeling like they are the end of a season and not the beginning. The seasons also often suffer from an extreme lack of cohesion, which is nowhere more prevalent than Season 5, which jumps around from 4 different story sections. My rewrites are simply trying to correct this, so I just thought I'd get that out of the way. What that means, though, is that what many people consider to be the best parts of Season 5, that being the first few episodes and the last few episodes, will not be in my rewrite of Season 7, which just means that like Season 7 of the original series, Season 7 of my rewrite will be the most underwhelming. But anyway, let's just get to the actual episodes already. Alright, in Episode 1, the season would start out with the Carol and Daryl episode where they go to Atlanta together to get Beth back, which means I'm switching up the order of the episodes a bit. In my opinion, it would be more exciting for the audience to not know what is going on with Beth in the city immediately, while watching Carol and Daryl try to figure it out. The episode would progress pretty similarly to how it did in the original, with it starting out with flashbacks of all the fucked up shit Carol has done, and in my rewrite Carol would admit to Daryl that she was the one who killed all the people in Car B at Terminus. Daryl then asks her if she would kill him if he ever put the group in danger, and she says that she doesn't think she could. Daryl would then tell her that he would want her to, as he wouldn't want to endanger everyone. The stupid scene where they fall off the bridge and the car never happens, and instead they just climb under the bridge to avoid the walkers. However, while trying to get down, Carol would injure herself badly, and after Daryl captures Noah, who says that Beth is alive and he knows how they can get her back, when the police car rolls up looking for him, Carol actually gives herself over to them instead so that she can have her wounds treated, get taken back to Beth, and Daryl can escape with Noah, so the officers just knock her out and take her. Because let's be real, it's just kind of pathetic that Carol just ran out and got hit by a car in the original. In fact, I actually can't remember a single spoken line from Carol after that episode for the first half of Season 5, which is just freaking ridiculous. We stand Carol, and she will play a much more active role in this arc in my rewrite. Anyway, in Episode 2, we would focus on my rewrite of the events taking place in the Slabtown episode. So let's really get into the meat of my alterations for the Grady Memorial arc. In the original show, Dawn's character was inconsistent as fuck. She said a bunch of things that didn't make sense, and it was incredibly unclear whether the writers were trying to paint her as a sympathetic woman who was just put in a bad spot, or as a villainous figure. So here's how I would change Dawn in my rewrite. In the original, Dr. Stephen Edwards is the one constantly arguing about how they can't afford to waste resources on people who aren't recovering. However, in my rewrite, Dawn is the one who is constantly arguing that they can't afford to waste resources on patients who won't make it, which makes the audience fear for Beth's life if she can't recover fast enough. Dawn is much less sympathetic in my rewrite, and she is portrayed as a cold, calculating figure who views people as tools and resources, referring to patients who aren't recovering as bad assets. She keeps an incredibly tight shift in the hospital, demanding total perfection from everyone subservient to her, but as in the original, she lets her mostly male officers do as they please for the most part, because she doesn't want to give people that can physically overpower her a reason to hate her, and want to take her down like she did to their previous leader Hanson when she seized power. Also, rather than just throwing dead patients down an elevator shaft, she demands to have the dying patients personally brought to her, saying, "They're no good to me alive, I'll find a use for them dead." When Dr. Stephen Edwards tells Beth to give the patient the wrong medicine that kills him, he is not a doctor, and it is actually on Dawn's orders. It is a mystery in the episode what she does with the bodies. Another thing the audience will notice in the episode is that, despite Dawn constantly saying they need to conserve resources, the hospital really has the works. Power, clean water, lots of food and medicine, you name it. And it's unknown how Dawn is providing so much of it. I would also cut out the scenes where Dawn is acting sympathetic towards Beth and trying to relate to her, and she doesn't have the delusion that people are going to come and rescue them. So yeah, in my rewrite, Dawn is just a straight-up villain that Beth needs to be constantly watchful of, and she beats her as well as other people in the hospital whenever they step out of line. With all those additions out of the way, the basic plot of the episode would still be the same as it was in the original Slab Town. Beth and Noah would try to find ways of escaping, and they would make it out through the elevator shaft. Noah would manage to make it, but Beth would get caught and brought back, and also that scene is actually shot normally and not with that echoing, slow-mo, blurred, filter style scene in the original episode. My gosh. Dawn would confront Beth, saying that she is responsible for losing her ward Noah, so now she is going to become her ward and obey everything she says to the letter. And if she doesn't, well, like Dawn said before, if people aren't of use to her alive, she'll find a use for them dead. Dawn then leaves her in a room with the officer who tried to rape her but got killed in the original episode. But in my rewrite, he actually does rape Beth, and she doesn't kill him, and Dawn just sits by and lets it happen. And when the doctor reaches for a cigarette, she tells him to go smoke outside. In my rewrite, Dr. Stephen Edwards is someone who really doesn't like the things that Dawn does, but obeys her anyway. Then there is a bit of a time jump, and the episode ends with Beth seeing Carol being brought in, and them exchanging glances. In episode 3, we get the Abraham story, with him trying to get Eugene to Washington along with everyone else. It plays out mostly like how it does in the original, but with it starting out showing the whole flashback of Abraham killing all those guys to protect his family. I just really don't like it when The Walking Dead keeps splitting its flashbacks into different sections throughout an episode if there isn't really a reason to it. However, I would still have the flashback where Abraham meets Eugene played at the end of the episode, since there's a reason to show it after Eugene tells the truth. Other than that, though, the episode plays out pretty much exactly the same as it does in the original. In episode 4, we catch up back with Rick's group, with Daryl explaining the situation to Rick and what happened in Atlanta. Rick is of course distrusting of Noah and grills him, with Noah telling him how they can get Beth back and also telling him that he came from a safe community where he was living out with his dad, mom, and brothers. He says that he wants to go back there and that after Beth is rescued, he can show them the way there. Rick makes a plan to take everyone to Atlanta to get Beth back, while Michonne and Carl stay back to look after Judith and Gabriel. We then see Rick going off with everyone to Atlanta, and when they get there, the group remarks on how the city used to be one of the most dangerous places in the world, but with most of the walkers leaving the city and spreading out, it is strangely peaceful. Meanwhile, back at the church, Gabriel starts freaking out about what Rick and his crew did to the cannibals, and makes a plan to escape the church to go see if they really did eat Oscar's leg. Of course, like in the original, Rick makes a plan to attack the Grady Memorial Hospital, kill Dawn, and take Beth back by force, but Noah tries to talk him out of it. In the end, Rick does decide to do the hostage exchange, and the group captures 3 police officers like in the original series. However, he still wants to see if he could get the opportunity to kill Dawn, so Daryl and him pull up close to Brady Memorial Hospital, but then, a few blocks down, they see a helicopter preparing to land and hurry towards the site. The episode ends with the helicopter landing on a pad right where Dawn is standing. That's right, in my rewrite, Dawn is actually connected to the mysterious helicopter group, just like Jadis. In episode 5, it would begin with Dawn going out to meet with the helicopter group, and we would actually get a first-hand look at them. It is revealed that Dawn turned several of her patients who were not recovering into walkers and is selling them to the helicopter group in exchange for a bunch of valuable supplies. They tell her, "These are weak ones. C's. When will you have more A's and B's?" In my rewrite, Dawn is financing the operations of the hospital and her own life of comfort by periodically sacrificing patients every month to the helicopter group. And she didn't leave Noah's dad for dead. Instead, she captured him and turned him into a walker to give to the helicopter group, as he made for a valuable B. And this is the reason why she keeps talking about not wasting resources and pulling the plug on certain patients. Dawn asks this group where she can go with it, when she can go with them and leave Grady Memorial, as offering her sanctuary is the least they can do for everything she has been providing them. But they tell her she needs to find a suitable replacement who can keep bringing them sacrifices before they take her. The opening theme plays and it cuts back to Abraham with Eugene, still passed out. In the episode, all the stuff with his group would still happen, but what I find weird about the original series was that it never really explained what was happening in the flashbacks we saw of Abraham, and it just kind of left me confused as to what was happening in them with Abraham killing all those people. In the comics, it's much more clear as Abraham breaks down and tells Rick that his family and he left his family with a group of men that raped his wife and daughter, making his son watch, and when he came back, he brutally killed them all in front of them. His wife then left him with their children, saying that he is more of a monster than they were, and then of course he finds them getting eaten by walkers. In my version of events, he breaks down and tells all this to Maggie, with this being the first and only time we see him crying in the series. He tells Maggie that there is a darkness inside him, and after he nearly killed Eugene and threatened Rosita, everyone looked at him the same way his wife did. He says that he is a pathetic excuse for a soldier who was chasing a lie this entire time and never did anything but watch the people around him die. However, Maggie tries to console him, saying that that's not true, and he did a lot of things, like helping Glenn get back to her, helping them get away from Terminus, helping Rick deal with the cannibals, and saving the life of a lying asshole. Speak of the devil, Eugene wakes up, and Maggie and Glenn convince Abraham to go back to Rick, saying that it might not be as grand as saving the world, but he can still do some real good in Rick's group, and he ends up agreeing. Then, back at the church, of course, Gabriel goes to the school to see Bob's munched-on leg, and he sees the disturbing writings the cannibals left all over the place back there, and then he gets swarmed by walkers and runs back to the church. Meanwhile, back at Atlanta, we see Rick and Daryl surveying the situation with Dawn and the helicopter group. And with Dawn out in the open, Rick has her in her sights, but he misses the opportunity to kill her when Daryl convinces him not to. Then we cut back to Dawn, who is talking with a younger female officer who she seems to trust, and it is clear that she is training her to become her successor so she can pack up and leave Grady Memorial Hospital. All the bullshit she spews about sacrificing patients for the greater good is all really for her own good. Meanwhile, unlike in the original show, Beth and Carol actually interact with each other, while they try to keep a low profile and not let Dawn know they know each other. Many of the Dawn and Beth scenes that were in the original series are instead given to Beth and Carol. Carol tells her what is going on with Rick and the group, and Beth tells her about how she has been treated in the hospital and about the man who rapes her. She tells Carol that the next time she gets put in a room with him, she has a plan to kill him, but Carol says that that is a terrible idea because she will be severely punished and possibly killed, and that for now she just has to take it before Rick shows up. Beth freaks out at her, saying that she should fight and that she isn't weak, but then Carol confronts her about the lines on her neck and how Daryl told her she tried to kill herself. Carol says that Beth is weak, just like she was, but she doesn't have to be, and that she can change, just like she did. But in order to do that, she needs to survive long enough first. The episode ends with Carol telling Beth that their best course of action is to wait for now, and that Carol will act like a helpless old woman who is in love with the hospital and never wants to leave it, while Beth can do everything she can to gain Dawn's trust, because they might need it in the future if things go south, and they wait for the opportune moment to strike. In episode 6, things would play out at the church like how they do in the original, with Gabriel coming back and leading a giant bunch of walkers to the church. Michonne and Carl rescue him, and they escape underneath the church, with Gabriel apologizing for sneaking out, and then Abraham showing up and telling them that Eugene lied. Michonne and Carl are shocked and start yelling at Eugene, but the situation is diffused, and after Abraham is told about the situation, he decides to go to Atlanta to help Rick, and he takes Carl, Michonne, and Gabriel with them, since he isn't safe at the church anymore. Back at Rick's group, it of course shows Bob attempting to escape, but only it's Tyrese he tricks this time and not Sasha, in keeping with the main theme of his character of trusting his enemies too much, with Rick chasing him down and hitting him with the car, but unlike in the original, Rick doesn't kill him, because it was just stupid to kill a valuable hostage like that. Instead, Rick brings him back, paralyzed in his lower body, and then Rick again reconsiders the hostage exchange plan, wondering if it might just be safer to kill all the officers. But the group once again try to convince him that the plan will work, especially Tyrese, who says, "Ain't nobody gotta die today." After which Rick grills him, asking if that was what he was thinking, letting Martin escape, and why he let... asking if that was what he was thinking, letting Bob escape, and why he let Martin go originally, telling Tyrese that if he wants to be part of their group, then he has to be willing to get his hands dirty. Rick says that he needs more time to consider what he will do, but ultimately decides that he will go through with the hostage exchange plan. And then we get the same scene as in the original, with Rick meeting up with the officers and planning on a time and meeting place for the exchange. However, then, unlike in the original, Abraham and the people with him would show up at Atlanta and reconvene with everyone. They would tell each other of their respective situations, and Rick's group being incredibly disappointed about Eugene being a liar. Rick then asks for Abraham's help dealing with the hostage exchange, and he is still afraid of things going south because he is super fucking paranoid now, and he laments at the lack of guns that they have. And this is where a major addition of my rewrite comes in. I always thought it was such a missed opportunity in the original show for the group to return to Atlanta, but never go back to see what happened with the Vatos gang. You know, what happened with them in Season 1. In my version, Glenn suggests to Rick that they go back there, and if they still have some of the guns that he left them back then, maybe they can ask for some. They return to see the location where the Vatos gang was staying, with no living humans staying there anymore. There are only a bunch of corpses, walking and put down, with a great number of elderly people staying there having been killed, and it looks as though the Vatos gang got raided by walkers and everyone died a long time ago. Glenn is incredibly saddened, and he makes the group put down all the walkers that he knew they're down, but Rick is almost completely uncaring, seeming more concerned about the fact that all the guns he left them are out of bullets. Glenn confronts him about how he can be so cold and heartless, and Rick says that he doesn't particularly care that people who he hardly knew that captured Glenn and took half their guns died. And Glenn asks him what the hell is wrong with him, telling Rick that he's changed, to which Rick responds, "Oh yeah? And just when the hell did you notice that, Glenn?" After that, Tyrese, Maggie, and Tara, and the other members of the I'm Still Uncomfortable About Killing People squad try to console him about it, and Tyrese in particular tells him that even in this world you can still help people, so you gotta try. The episode would end with Rick preparing to go to the hostage exchange. In episode 7, it would put primary focus on Beth and Carol again, before getting to the end of the episode. We would see for the first time in this episode Carol mastering her act of blending into her surroundings that we would see her later use in Alexandria. She has been pretending that she was so incredibly grateful that the hospital took her in when she was injured. She tries getting closer with all the patients/workers there, but mostly tries getting closer with the officers to gain their trust. In fact, since she can see that Beth is really struggling, she tries to make her life easier by trying to seduce the cop that was raping Beth. It's definitely difficult because she is a much older woman, but because Show Carol is a total Chad, she is successful, and she grits her teeth and bears it, pretending she is in love with him, having plenty of experience from before with her husband Ed. After the officers who met Rick get back, they ask Carol some questions about the group she was with, who was demanding that they get her back, to which she responds that she doesn't want to go back with them, but she has to because they are violent and brutal, so who knows what they would do to the hospital if she refuses to go back. Meanwhile, we see Beth getting closer to Dawn, and Dawn opening up more and telling her about the things she had to do to get control of the hospital and the officers, saying how it was complete chaos before she took control, but she stepped up and put everything in its rightful place. At Carol's behest, Beth secretly draws a map of the interior layout of the buildings that Dawn has control over, and after she finds the location where all the guns and weapons are kept, she gives it to Carol secretly. Then Dawn confronts Beth about the fact that Carol was from the same group as her, about keeping the fact that Carol was from the same group as her a secret, and intimidating her and asking her what else she has been hiding. But then, before she can dig into her, 3 officers arrive at the scene. In the original series, there was a scene where one officer had a confrontation with Dawn about the way she was running the hospital, and it was honestly just confusing whether Dawn or the male officer was supposed to be the bad guy. Another example of the writers just really not knowing what to do with Dawn, in my view. In my version, though, the 3 officers who confront Dawn are clearly portrayed as the good guys, telling Dawn that she is sick, letting other officers rape the patients they are trying to help, and then letting a bunch of them die when they could have been saved. The main guy, O'Donnell, says that after Dawn killed their previous leader, Hanson, she changed, and he is not going to just sit by and watch it all happen anymore. They get into a confrontation, this time with Dawn having the female officer she is training to take her place with her, and Beth runs away, meaning it's 2-on-1. Dawn and the female officer manage to kill 2 of them, but then O'Donnell knocks the female officer out and goes to fisticuffs with Dawn, overpowering her, and he almost kills her, until Beth returns and shoots him in the head. This is the first time Beth kills a person, intentionally anyway, and she did it to gain Dawn's trust, just like Carol said, and then afterwards Beth tells her that she owes her one. Then of course it gets to the hostage exchange, but things go drastically different in my rewrite. I always thought that the ending of the Grady Memorial arc in the original show was just incredibly underwhelming, with Beth's death being downright confusing and it just ending with everyone walking away fine. In my version, after Rick exchanges the 3 officers they had for Carol and Beth, Dawn says that she needs Noah back since he ran away, and an officer paralyzed in his bottom half is just a bad asset. Beth is incredibly enraged at this, reminding Dawn that she owes her, but Dawn is uncompromising, her obsessive and compulsive disorder clearly getting the better of her. Then, of course, Beth takes Noah's place, and she says she will go with Dawn, and after she says, "I get it now," she takes out the scissors she brought and slits Dawn's throat, killing her. Aw, she was just a few months away from retirement. After which, of course, Rick's group and the officers are incredibly tense, ready to shoot each other up, but Beth tries to defuse the situation, saying, "Nobody else has to die. It was just about her." But then, as she is walking back towards Rick, she gets shot in the head by surprise from behind by the female officer loyal to Dawn. I feel as though this would be a much better and more satisfying way for Beth to go out, as in the end she proved that she wasn't weak, but got her life cut short right in the middle of her growth. Daryl then shoots and kills the female officer, and a full-on shootout takes place between both groups. Rick and his group, clearly outnumbered and outgunned, go for cover and then escape by climbing out the windows. Meanwhile, Carol stays behind, begging the officers not to kill her, saying, "I told you they were violent brutes. Please, you have to kill them. Don't make me go back with them." Then she tells the rapey officer she seduced that she loves him, and the officers ultimately decide to let her stay while they go to exterminate Rick's group. Back with Maggie and Glenn, who were the only ones of the group who stayed behind to protect Gabriel, Carl, Judith, and Eugene, they hear the gunshots, and Glenn goes to climb up to where Rick is to ask him what is going on. Rick tells everyone that escape isn't an option, shouting, "It won't be like it was with Terminus. This time we don't take chances. We kill them all." Then the episode ends there. In Episode 8, it would just be pure action for most of it, with Rick's fighters participating in a battle against the officers, and it being really difficult to take them out, especially since they are trained for combat and have bulletproof vests. Glenn and Tyrese tell Rick that what he is planning to do is insane, and Noah says that they can't do it, because not all the officers are bad people, but Rick don't give a fuck, and he just goes along with his plan anyway. Then there are just a bunch of badass scenes with characters like Abraham going crazy and mowing down officers left and right, killing them with his bare hands even, Michonne chopping people into bits, Rick dealing with the fact that he was a cop who promised to protect and serve and is now gunning down other cops one by one. Carol is really the MVP of this episode, though, as her deception allows her to take out the cops from the inside. She gets them by surprise, steals their weapons, and kills them, including that asshole who is raping Beth. And she manages to save Rick and the group when they are cornered by some officers. She then takes them to the armory, they break it open and steal the weapons and gear in there, and then go and murder every single one of the officers. Though Glenn, Tyrese, and Tara never fire a shot. After all is said and done, Daryl carries Beth's corpse out to her crying Maggie like in the original show. Beth was right when she said in Season 6 that she would never see her sister again, and a conflict that could have been entirely avoided turned into a bloody massacre. Thanks a lot, Dawn. Understandably, the group is incredibly shaken after what transpired, and Tara asks how Rick could possibly do something like that, saying she was trained to be a cop and she could have been one of the people he killed. Rick simply says, "It was us or them," plain and simple. Noah asks Rick, without the officers, how are the patients/workers supposed to defend themselves in there? Rick and the gang go back into Brady Memorial, and they meet Dr. Steven, who freaks out at them, saying that they have condemned the people there to death. He explains that Dawn was the only one authorized to contact the helicopter group, and without her, especially after the shootout that just took place, they will never come back and deliver the supplies they need to survive. He tells Rick that Dawn may have done horrible things, but they needed her to survive. Then Rick asks the people living at Grady Memorial if they want to come with him and be a part of his group, but they all refuse, absolutely horrified at what they have done. Then Rick asks Noah if he wants to stay there or go back to his family with them, and ultimately he is the only one who decides to go with Rick, but he clearly has a lot of guilt about just leaving all those patients there. Then Rick starts loading up the bus with food and supplies from Grady Memorial that he takes, and starts taking the guns there too, but Glenn demands that the remaining people there keep them, and that they aren't theirs to take. Rick says they can keep half, like how Rick left the Vatos group with half the guns in Season 1, and they all drive away from Atlanta, never to go back, knowing that they are most likely leaving the people at Grady Memorial to die, just like the Vatos gang. Beth's funeral is held, and the episode ends with the group driving off to Virginia. In episode 9, it starts with the bus breaking down, and then we follow the group's escapades as they try to get Noah to the community his family was in. They constantly face hardships trying to get there, with the roads blocked, walkers everywhere, and their vehicles constantly breaking down because the gasoline is expiring now. And of course, the group is also trying to reckon with what they just did back at Grady Memorial. Noah is particularly guilty about it, apologizing to Maggie, saying that if he had just stayed with Dawn, Beth would still be alive, and so would everyone else who died in the hospital. Maggie would say it isn't his fault, but would clearly be devastated over the death of her sister, and Carol would try to console Maggie about what happened and tell her how strong Beth was up until her last moments, and Daryl would also get some scenes with her as well. Noah would also feel incredibly guilty about leaving the people at Brady Memorial to die, and Tyrese would talk with him about it, saying that it is natural to want to go back to his family. Tyrese tells him that he could have stayed and helped the people there, but he didn't because he didn't want to leave Sasha. He then breaks down crying, telling him about how there is so much ugliness in the world and it is so much easier to take a life than save one, and questions whether he even knows what is right anymore, as if he didn't let Martin go, maybe the cannibals wouldn't have found the group. However, he still does think that there is some goodness in this world that you have to hold on to. Many scenes that happen in the episode Them of the original show, like Gabriel trying to console Maggie, I would actually move to this episode. I would also add some stuff like Gabriel questioning Noah if Rick and what they did at Grady Memorial, slaughtering all the officers and being pretty damn terrified of the group. Rick demanding that Eugene and Gabriel learn how to fight walkers and showing them the ropes, with there being a humorous moment where Carl saves Gabriel from being bitten by a walker and then says, "You realize your ass just got saved by a 14-year-old dude." Then, of course, the group would roll up at the community Noah was staying at, only to find that everyone there had already been killed, and Noah breaks down crying and runs back to his house. Then the episode ends there. In episode 10, it would of course have the death of Tyrese like in the original series, but much like the Grady Memorial arc, the Shire World Estates content in the original series felt kind of underwhelming and fillery. So let's just think about how I can spruce things up a bit in this episode. I would make the addition that the blood spilled there is still attracting flies, which means the community Noah's family was staying at was attacked just a few days earlier. They were so close to making it back in time, oh no. When Tyrese goes to find Noah at his house, Noah says that he left Grady Memorial Hospital for nothing because his entire family is dead now anyway. But of course Tyrese tries to reassure him and give him a reason to keep moving on. Meanwhile, back with Rick, he and the group are trying to discern what happened in the place before they got there. They notice walkers and walker corpses all around the place, but in the end they determined that it had to be other humans who did this and let the walkers in. Since a section of the wall surrounding the community was destroyed, parts of the community have been burned, and there's pretty much nothing of value left there as everything has been ransacked. A lot of the walkers they find also have W's on their foreheads. And as shown then, of course, floats the idea of continuing their journey all the way to Washington, and they press Eugene about it. I always find it weird how in the original series it was never explained why people wanted to get to Washington so badly, other than the vague notion that Eugene, that that Eugene had that they had the best chance there. In my rewrite, Eugene did a lot of research before the internet went down and found out that Washington, D.C. was where government officials, including the president, were being sent to be protected by the military, and the city had provisions prepared already for hundreds of people to survive a pandemic. So he thought that the best chance was to go there, and he tells Rick and Michonne that he still thinks it's their best option. Meanwhile, the group comes across more walkers, but these ones are freshly turned, meaning they are much faster, stronger, and more ferocious than the older ones they're used to facing, so they have some issues dealing with them, and Rick tells them not to fire a gun so as not to draw more. He also tells everyone to watch out for the people who attack the place, as they might come back. Meanwhile, back with Tyrese and Noah, Tyrese does not just get bitten by a kid walker in my rewrite, because that is such an underwhelming and stupid way to go out. Instead, Noah's dead family, his mom, twin brother, and younger brother show up at the house and start attacking him. He's overpowered by them and can't bring himself to put them down, but then Tyrese shows up and saves him, but in order to stop Noah's twin brother from biting him, his arm gets bitten in the process. He tells Noah to run to get Rick immediately, since he has the tourniquet and axe, but Noah gets stopped outside by more freshly turned walkers and fires his gun to kill them, which ends up attracting a ton of freshly turned walkers to their location. Thus, now the group is in for the fight of their lives, with a bunch of walkers that can actually pose a real threat against them again, and they use up a lot of their ammo trying to deal with them, which ends up drawing more and more, while at the same time they are trying to get back to Tyrese, who is dying, and gets bit by another walker again while bleeding out. In the original episodes, there were a bunch of flash-forwards and hallucinations during Tyrese's death, but honestly I would cut some of that out, as I really don't see what purpose it had other than being artsy, and instead he would see visions of walker versions of people he lost, like his daughter, Lizzie and Mika, and then him reflecting on if this is really the way he goes out and if he did any good at all in his life. Then, of course, Rick would reach out and cut his arm off, trying desperately to get him out of there while the walkers are swarming them, and then he would bleed out and die, coming back as a walker, and Rick would put him down. And then there would be another funeral, just like 2 episodes ago, and Noah is practically dying inside. In episode 11, we would get to see what many fans refer to as the Walking Dead on the road episode, because in the original series it was pretty much just the gang walking on the road for an entire episode. Okay, of course other stuff happened too, and I would keep that other stuff in while also adding some other stuff to make the episode more exciting. By now the group has run out of vehicles they can use and are forced to travel the rest of the way to Washington on foot, carrying all their remaining supplies with them. One constant problem for them is the fact that Judith, who in my timeline would be past 1 year old by now, would be constantly crying, and because she is hungry. The group goes everywhere they can to get an adequate source of food for Judith, but they can't find much of anything around now, and it hasn't rained in over a week. They do manage to find sleeping pills, though, that they give to baby Judith so she won't attract walkers toward them. However, they keep running into walkers and eventually into a whole herd of them, so Rick decides that in order to get to where they are going, they need to become the Walking Dead. They use the guts technique to make it past all the walkers without trouble, while Carl holds Judith in the middle of them, with all of them having blank, hopeless, dead faces. After a while, though, Judith wakes up and starts making noise, so they have to avoid and fight off the walkers, and then they keep pushing on. I would also have an added scene where Noah tries to talk to Sasha about the death of her brother, and how he was a good man, and that it should have been him who died. To which Sasha responds, "Yeah, it should have been you." Then Maggie and Rosita would start getting sick from the walker guts, which would just make their journey even more difficult. A small addition I would make is that after Eugene tries to drink the water Aaron leaves for them, Rick tells them that if he wants to be useful, he needs to stay alive so that one day his intelligence might be put to good use. Then, of course, it starts pouring. They make it back to the shack, and Rick tells them that we are the Walking Dead, made even more powerful in my rewrite because they were literally just covered in walker guts and walking amongst the dead. Unlike in the original, Daryl doesn't disagree with Rick, and the episode ends there. In episode 12, it would start out with the scene where the group holds the barn doors from getting torn down by walkers, and in my rewrite, it's more clear that it's actually happening, as in the original, I was kind of confused that whether or not it was a dream sequence. Then a tree goes down right in front of the barn door, blocking the walkers. The opening theme plays, and we get introduced to Aaron. From there, things play out pretty much like they did originally, with Rick thinking Aaron is super sus because he doesn't like applesauce, and the episode ending with Aaron making it back to Eric, and Rick being swayed by their gayness to think he is not super sus anymore. In episode 13, I would actually make some additions before the group makes it back to Alexandria. If memory serves, in the comic books, before Rick and the group manage to make it back to Alexandria, they run into some other Alexandrians out on a run and save them from some walkers. I would add this in my rewrite, with this being where the group gets introduced to Heath's character, who Glenn saves, since it's a little weird how Heath wasn't introduced until Season 6 of the original series, and then promptly forgotten about, but we'll get to that later. And Scott is also introduced here, of course, as well. Give it up for Scott, most underutilized character. Anyway, Heath and his group hit it off with Rick's group thanking them for saving them, with Rick being more and more convinced that this community they were talking about might actually be real. We get a feel for the new characters' personalities, and more focus is given to most underutilized character Scott, with him basically being the really strong, dependable one of the group that Heath would trust his life with. Then I would dedicate the opportunity for the group to ask about the state of Washington, D.C. Heath says that he does runs in D.C. all the time, and that it's pretty much a ghost town. Eugene's hunch about there being a setup in Washington to serve as a safe zone was wrong, but like him, a lot of people came here for that and ended up in Alexandria. But he says their leader, Deanna, can tell them more about that. Then they travel back to Alexandria all together, and there is that beautiful scene where Rick hears the sounds of the children playing inside. Rather than Sasha shooting a walker outside the gates, instead Spencer demands that the gates are closed, but Rick says no, and the group kill all the walkers coming towards their gates first with knives, with Rick saying, "It's a good thing we're here." We get some interactions between Rick's group and the Alexandrians, who are very wary of them, and then the episode ends with Dirty Rick sitting down on Deanna's clean couch to talk with her. In episode 14, we finally get to the anticlimactic finale of the season, where the group is all introduced to Alexandria, and in my rewrite it shows at least a short segment of all of them being recorded and interviewed by Deanna. I chose this episode to end the season off on, as although it isn't super action-packed or tension-filled like any of my previous season finales or any of my season finales to come, I do think that Rick and the group finally finding the safe haven they have been searching for is a good way to cap off Season 7. It would, of course, begin with Deanna's talk with Rick, with some added stuff for my rewrite. And Deanna would tell Rick that she was a congressperson from Virginia, who assumed she was going to D.C. to be protected against the pandemic like the other government officials, so she went there. But it turned out it was a farce, and the president and the other so-called more important figures to national security are being kept in a secret location, who knows where. She was left with her family near D.C. with some low-level military recruits, including her son Aiden, and rather than just laying down and accepting death, she went to a developing suburb called Alexandria and had her husband and the other survivors with them get to work constructing the walls. I would also add Rick telling her about all the stuff they've been through and the dangerous groups that attack them, like the Governor, Terminus, and Grady Memorial. And he should also tell Deanna that she shouldn't exile people because they could just come back and attack like Andrew did from the prison. Then things would play out pretty much exactly like how they do in the original series, with the tragic death of Rick's beard, as well as my extra interviews, like I said, for people like Noah and Tara, who didn't get them originally. And I would actually move the scenes where Carl follows Enid outside the walls, and Carl and Rick find the guns they left out there missing to the Season 8 premiere. Then the episode would end with Rick saying that if they can't make it work, then they will just have to take the place for themselves. Then the end credit scene would show Morgan finding the note Abraham left Rick at the church. And that, everybody, is my rewrite for Season 7 of The Walking Dead. I think I did a pretty good job expanding the content in the original episodes while also making it more interesting and worthwhile to watch. As in the original episodes of Season 5, it could feel like the show was both boring and slow, but also somehow rushed as well. But enough about that. Let's just get on to Season 8 already. Just check this recording. Alright, take a drink of water. Alright, so my rewrite of Season 8 would of course be covering the material from Season 5, Episode 13, Forget, of the original show, to Season 6, Episode 9 of the original show, No Way Out. The episode that for sure deserves season finale status more than any other. The season will consist of a total of 15 episodes covering 13 of the original show, though 3 of those were technically extended, so in my rewrite, honestly, it wouldn't be that much longer than the original, and I will be making much less changes than I did in Season 7. In Episode 1, we would get the Carl following Enid outside the wall scene, and the Rick and Carl finding the guns they left out there missing scene, that I cut from the Season 7 finale, of course. And then, for the most part, things would play out like how they do in the original series, with Daryl and Aaron going out to find the horse, and then him interviewing Deanna and then him inviting Daryl over for dinner. I would actually add a few lines with Daryl humorously remarking on how if his dad could see him slurping down spaghetti with two gay guys, he'd go ballistic. To which they ask him if they make him uncomfortable or anything, to which Daryl would respond, "Nah, it's not for me, but you two seem happy, so what do I care?" We got the liberal redneck in here, people. Points to anyone who gets that reference. Then there would be the fine dining party. Sasha would freak out, and I would actually add a scene of Michonne talking to Sasha about why she needs to calm the fuck down and why she decided to hang up her sword. She asked Sasha if she knew Andrea, and Sasha says that Andrea is one of the people who is the one who taught her how to shoot. And then Michonne tells Sasha that after she lost everyone she cared about, she was alone and closed herself off from everyone, thinking that she could survive better by herself, like Sasha's doing now. But then Andrea brought her back and made her realize that that wasn't the way things should be. And it was Andrea's dream to find a place like this where civilization and rule of law was still around, so she's trying to live it for her. Even before the world ended, I never cared much for the day-to-day rhythms of modern life. Obsessions with trivial nonsense, meaningless small talk and socializations, and I can tell you hated it too. But you need to listen to me. It is better than being out there, and it is better than being alone. However, Sasha of course rejects her advice, and just like what happens in the comic book, Rick has a conversation with Deanna about putting someone up in the bell tower to protect Alexandria, and Sasha volunteers. And we get the terrifying Carol cookie scene, and the episode ends with Sasha shooting a walker with a W on its head. In episode 2, I would actually change some things up. If I were going by the chronology of the original series, the episode would have Glenn and the others going out with Aiden on their run. But I'm actually moving that to episode 3 as I want the stakes and pressure to continuously getting progressively higher each episode. This episode would still have many of the things in the original, Gabriel finding himself quite unaccustomed to being placed in the role of preacher again, and Rick and Carol beginning to suspect some questionable things going on with Jesse's husband Pete. In my rewrite, when Noah was talking to Reg, he would talk to him about how he wouldn't be here right now if two people didn't sacrifice their lives for him, and he just wants to make sure that they didn't die in vain. He also admits to Reg that he is harboring a lot of guilt for the loss of his family and leaving the people at Grady Memorial to fend for themselves, and he wants to make a good contribution to the community. In my rewrite, Reg suggests that there should be a first aid responder for people out on runs, since he knows how to handle himself out there and has medical experience from Grady Memorial. And then Noah is introduced to Denise, another character that weirdly wasn't introduced until season 6 in the original show. Then, of course, Abraham would go to work at his construction job and save Francie's life like a complete shad, while Virgin Tobin wanted to abandon her. And also, Carter is introduced in this episode because what was the deal with season 6 of the show introducing a bunch of Alexandrians that we didn't see beforehand? Now, this is where we actually get to a significant alteration that I would make in my rewrite. I always found it weird as fuck that Abraham ended up leaving Rosita and getting together with Sasha in the show. That development just came out of nowhere for me, as they shared basically no connection before season 6, and I honestly didn't even feel that much romantic chemistry between the two of them in season 6. Come to find out in the comic books, the woman Abraham saves while going out doing construction is named Holly, and she is the one that Abraham leaves Rosita for. In my read, I'm just going to be keeping that plot point from the original comic books, with Francine, who Abraham saves in the show. I know this goes against what I've said in the past about how The Walking Dead should use pre-established characters more rather than introducing new ones, but this is an exception, as Abraham and Holly's relationships in the comic books honestly felt way more natural and realistic than Abraham and Sasha's in the show. The episode would end with Enid and Carl almost smooching outside in the woods, and it would end with the episode would have Enid and Carl almost smooching outside in the woods, and it would end with Rick's line, "Keep walking," said towards Pete. In episode 3, we would of course get the stuff with Glenn and Nicholas going out on their run. This time I would add a line from Tara about being salty that Michonne was made a constable and not her, since she was trained to be a cop. And Eugene would have a save-the-day moment. However, I would make some significant changes. In addition to Nicholas and Aiden, Nicholas's wife is coming with them too. In the comics, Nicholas is actually shown having a family, which I would implement into the show. Of course, things go terribly wrong, and Aiden would get quite impaled, this time with Noah trying to do something to save his life, but of course failing, and he gets eaten by walkers. Then Nicholas goes against Glenn's plan and escapes, but this time he is actually leaving his wife behind. What a dick. In my rewrite, Noah actually doesn't die here, and it won't be until way fucking longer that Noah bites the bullet, as I still have plans for him, and his death in the original series made Beth's death and the entire Grady Memorial arc kinda pointless. In actuality, I wouldn't kill off any member of Rick's group in this season to showcase to Rick how them being in Alexandria is clearly safer than being outside of it. Instead, Noah is in the same section of the revolving door as Nicholas's wife is, and the walkers start chomping on his leg and her arm. However, Nicholas's wife says that someone has to sacrifice themselves as bait so that the others can escape. She says it was her husband who put Noah and Glenn in this situation, and she has to make up for it. And she has to make it up to them and everyone else who died because they were cowards before them. So she lets herself be torn apart, and Glenn escapes with Noah, barely able to amputate his leg in time, and they make it back to Alexandria with Eugene. Then, of course, Deanna hears both sides of what happened from Glenn and Nicholas while Noah is passed out, and Nicholas says that they are responsible for his wife's death and sacrificed her in order to escape, which he probably would have thought since he didn't actually see what happened, while Glenn tells her that he is a son of a bitch who left his own wife behind so that he could escape. It is then that Gabriel would come to her while she is at the hospital, going to see Noah and Tara, warning her that Rick and his crew are not to be trusted, and telling her about the time they killed all the police officers at Brady Memorial and left the survivors for dead, and this time with Noah overhearing as he regains a bit of consciousness again. Then there's a scene of Nicholas going back to his daughter, telling her that the bad men who came from outside the walls were responsible for her mother's death. Sasha, seeing a bunch of W's on the walkers, would recognize them from Noah's community that was attacked. She would go to warn Deanna about them, but she would simply tell her that they don't know if they would ever even attack or how many of them there are, and to not be so concerned about it. Sasha would tell the rest of the group and tell Daryl to be safe going out there with Aaron, and then sneak out to the watchtower to locate more W walkers and then sneak out of the watchtower to locate more W walkers and the source of them for herself, with Rosita and Michonne going after her, and Michonne fighting walkers with the biggest stick, unlike a gun in the original series, since in my rewrite she really shouldn't be too great with guns. Then, of course, Sasha would stay out there and kill walkers, telling Michonne and Rosita to go back. Rick would talk to Diana about killing Pete and about his concerns with the W group, and complain to Deanna that she is not being proactive enough and about protecting Alexandria. Daryl and Aaron would encounter the Walker corpse tied to a tree with the W on its forehead, and then the episode ends. In episode 4, it would begin with the scene with Morgan encountering the two wolves, and then the opening theme plays. Then it would have Rick talking to Jesse about protecting her from Pete, and they have their confrontation, and they crash out the window. Rick pulls out his gun and gives his crazy juice speech, only even crazier than the original, with him laughing hysterically on the ground, Heisenberg style, and saying how they will all die without him. Michonne knocks him out, and he is given a stern talking to by the group afterwards, and then Maggie goes to talk to Diana about it, who is very displeased, but Maggie continues warning her about the W group that is out there that they will need to defend against. However, it's clear now that Deanna is wary about giving any of Rick's group too much power. But when Maggie walks back to her house, Nicholas is shown stalking her. Meanwhile, it cuts to Tara waking up at the hospital, greeted by Denise, and they talk to each other. I think it would be better for them to actually have interactions to establish their relationship earlier on, as it just kind of came out of nowhere in the original season 6. Meanwhile, Carol talks to Rick about potential ways that they could get Deanna to let them stay if a member of Alexandria becomes a threat that Rick has to, quote-unquote, save them from, like Pete or Nicholas, who she saw was stalking Maggie. Then, of course... Carol would have her epic confrontation with the virgin Pete, telling him how, he is weak, just like her husband was, and just like she was, but with the difference between them being that people pitied her enough for her to be kept alive long enough to become strong, and that no one is going to pity him. Meanwhile, it would cut to Sasha continuing to hunt down the W walkers and coming across a disheveled man with a W on his forehead heading straight for Alexandria, but she manages to shoot him in the back, killing him. Carol has, and then it would cut to Aaron and Daryl, and them falling into the wolf trap, and the episode ends. In episode 5, all of the build-up of this season would finally come to a head, and this episode would end at the point that season 5 did in the original show. Maggie would notice that Nicholas keeps stalking her and confront him about it, and it is clear that he is extremely resentful about the fact that his wife died, but Glenn's is still alive. And when Maggie tells Glenn about Nicholas, he follows him. He follows him after he sees him going over the wall. Back at Alexandria, Noah confronts Gabriel about telling Deanna that Rick's group has to go, and Gabriel panics and frantically tries to convince the now one-legged Noah that the two of them are the only good people in Rick's group, because they are the newest ones to join, while Rick turned all the rest of them into monsters, even Carl. But Noah says that he isn't a good person at all. He left the people at Brady Memorial defenseless, he let 3 people die in his place so someone as shitty as him could live, and he would be better off dead. It is here that Gabriel remembers what he did to his congregation again, and he goes outside the walls to commit suicide by walkers so that he can know the pain that his congregation felt. However, he is saved by Sasha, who attacks him, asking him what the hell he was doing, and he asks her to kill him, but she forcefully drags his ass back to Alexandria and closes the gate tightly, which means Gabriel doesn't accidentally on purpose lead walkers into Alexandria like in the original show. Then, of course, Daryl and Aaron get saved by Morgan, and out beyond the walls of Alexandria, Nicholas tries to kill Glenn, and Maggie actually ends up going out looking for him after he disappears. After Sasha gets back, she tells Deanna about the W guy she killed and how he was running straight towards Alexandria and how they need to be prepared for an attack, but Deanna sees Rick's group as more of a potential threat right now, and has Spencer put on Watchtower instead of Sasha, and says that before anything else, they all need to talk about what to do with Rick. All the stuff I'm about to describe happens in conjunction with each other and not separately, like in the original episode. But the pacing of the climax was, because the pacing of the climax was so freaking good in the original. Outside the walls of Alexandria, Nicholas is about to kill Glenn, who he catches up to, but then Maggie saves Glenn, throwing Nicholas to the ground and pointing a gun at his head, about to shoot. Maggie grills him about how Glenn didn't do anything wrong, and he was a lying piece of shit who left his own wife to die, and tried to go after them both in revenge. Nicholas begs for his life, saying that he was wrong and just scared, and he can't let his daughter grow up without a parent. While Maggie gets real close to killing him, Glenn ultimately convinced her not to, remembering how Tyrese told him that there is still goodness in this world and they have to get back to Alexandria together. Meanwhile, back at Alexandria, Noah tries to talk to Sasha, but Sasha, in a rage, tells him that that is one more person who threw their life away for him, and that she doesn't care what he thinks in the slightest, clearly not being in the best headspace. Afterwards, it is Noah who goes to Gabriel saying that he wants to die, instead of Sasha like in the original series. In my rewrite, he is suffering from severe survivor's guilt, and he can't justify the fact that he is still here after everyone around him keeps dying. And during confession, Gabriel just breaks down crying next to him. Meanwhile, Rick would be secretly wandering about Alexandria, worried about what was going to happen next, when he sees 4 people leaping over the wall from outside Alexandria in the distance, and he would go after them. Then Deanna's meeting starts, and Sasha's there, while Maggie isn't, unlike in the original. I would make the addition that Rick mentioned in their first confrontation how she shouldn't exile people because they could just come back and attack. And attack again, and Deanna questions whether she should just decide to kill Rick in the end. After Sasha hears it was Gabriel who told her that Rick's group was not to be trusted, Sasha then goes over to confront Gabriel and threatens him, saying, "You want to die, do you? I just might be able to make that happen." Noah tries to save Gabriel, telling her to kill him instead of her, and Sasha smacks him out of the way. At this point, it's just a contest between who wants to die more and who Sasha's angrier at. I think that the fight that Sasha gets into with Gabriel in the original was just kind of weird and not very well set up, and I think this would make for a more organic drama, with how I established previously Sasha freaking out and threatening to kill Carol over her killing Karen and David. So you could buy that she would try to do something like this after finding out Gabriel tried to betray the group. Deanna demands that someone go to find Sasha and bring her back, but Michonne says she will do it, and she gets into a full brawl with Sasha, who is clearly not in the best emotional state right now, and was looking like she might really kill Gabriel or Noah. But Michonne restrains her, and she starts crying, and Gabriel starts crying, and everyone starts fucking crying, and as Team Mom, Michonne gives them all a pep talk, and has Gabriel say the Our Father with them, and they calm the fuck down. Meanwhile, Rick finds the wolves, who hopped over the wall sneaking around. Thus, in my rewrite, they don't find Alexandria because of Aaron, and the walkers don't somehow find their way back into the walls with no one noticing. One finds their way to the armory and slits the guard's throat and is about to go off with all the guns he can carry until Rick stops him and kills him. Then Rick goes Rambo on all the other three, finding them slaughtering random Alexandrians in their homes, and kills them all quietly so that none of them can hear him coming. He then throws one of their dead bodies near the fire next to Deanna, saying that the four of them broke in, killing Alexandrians right under her nose, and they would have raided the armory if he hadn't stopped them. He then gives a speech about how they don't know shit about shit and they need to change to survive. Pete, who left his house to go to the armory, saw the dead guard, and thinking that Rick killed him, grabs a gun and goes to kill Rick himself, but Reg gets in the way and he kills him. Carol whispers under her breath, "We won." And then Rick kills him, and the episode ends with Morgan meeting Rick for the first time again. In episode 6, this would where we would be getting the Morgan flashback. In the original series, it was right after all the shit that happened with the wolves and the Walker Horde, but I just don't think it would really fit very well there. In my opinion, it would be better to put it directly after Rick and Morgan meet for the first time again. I know a lot of people were not big fans of this episode, but I actually really liked it, and the direction Morgan's character took. And I would hardly change a thing, outside of course, shortening it a bit, since, as I said before in my rewrite of season... As I said before, all my rewrite episodes are exactly 45 minutes long, and the original was extended. I don't really think we need to watch through all of the seasons in the original, like the scene where Morgan goes off on his own and kills the walker about to attack those people isn't really all that necessary, and I would just have him staying at the cabin with Eastman. The episode with Eastman while he's dying. The episode would end with Rick shooting Pete again, only to be seen from Morgan's perspective. In episode 7, things play out much like how they do in the original season 6 premiere of the show, except for the fact that it is told in chronological order and doesn't continually cut to shitty black and white flashbacks. Heath ends up rescuing Maggie, Glenn, and Nicholas from the Walkers as they try to get back to Alexandria, saying that he's paying them back for saving his ass, and asking what the hell happened to them, and everyone recovers emotionally and physically from the events of episode 5. Maggie and Carol decide not to tell Rick about what happened with... Maggie and Glenn decide not to tell Rick about what happened with Nicholas, since Rick would definitely kill him. One thing I would add is that Deanna, who is more or less letting Rick make the decisions now after being shook at in episode 5, allows Rick to take the 4 wolves that he killed, whose heads he didn't destroy yet, and drop them off as walkers outside of Alexandria, with the message, "Don't fuck with us," carved into their chests for the wolves to find. The Alexandrians are pretty terrified by Rick's disturbing tactics, but he groups them together and tells them that they need to take a more proactive approach to the group that is out there. And he tries to put Sasha back up on watchtower duty, but Michonne tells him that it might be better to let her take a break from everything temporarily to get her mind off things. Sasha tells Michonne that she is better now, and she was really losing it before, and she goes to apologize to Noah for all the horrible stuff she said to him, and also Gabriel, I guess. Spencer volunteers for watchtower duty, and Rick makes Rosita go with him to watch him. Having the two of them alone in the watchtower would allow for not only the time to set up their future sort of relationship, but also for him to vent his frustrations about Rick to her, and for her to better understand where he is coming from. Then, of course, he goes outside to drop off Pete's body and sees the giant herd of walkers. He said that they simply can't wait for them to get out, and that they have to take precautions to make sure the herd doesn't reach them, especially since he knows that the wolves have used walkers to attack in the past. So he enlists the help of Carter in Reg's place to go out and build the walker redirectors. Unlike in the original series, Rick doesn't just let the walkers free from the valley because that was kind of stupid and he could have just found other ways to deal with them. Instead, they are set free by the wolves, who found their walker friends, and have been observing what Rick has been doing, and are intentionally releasing the walkers as a distraction to get the Alexandrians to focus on the Walker Horde and leave Alexandria defenseless. And then Rick fires off a flare, signaling to everyone that the walkers are loose, and that they need to implement their plan to now keep them from getting into Alexandria. The episode ends there. Also, I would change it to make it that so that it's actually Francine that goes out with Abraham in my rewrite rather than Sasha, who is still back at Alexandria. Also in this episode, I would add more scenes of Rick forcing everyone to learn how to defend themselves from walkers, as he says the day will come when they can't run away. And he also arms all of his group with guns, making the Alexandrians quite uncomfortable. They question his authority, asking what right he has to boss them around. However, Deanna defends Rick, saying that they need to listen to him to survive. In episode 8, the leading away of the walkers goes as it does in the original series, with Carter getting a bite taken out of his face and Morgan's hilarious peanut butter bar joke. The episode would also depict the beginning of the events of JSS in the original series, with the wolves attacking out of nowhere and Spencer tries to stop the truck, but Rosita demands that he hands the gun over. She kills the guy driving the truck and takes out the front tire, causing it to swerve and miss the gate, but hit the watchtower, and then the horn blares, and the episode ends with the walkers being drawn to Alexandria, with the horn still blaring. The flashback of Enid and her parents getting chomped on by the walkers, which happens in episode 2 of season 6 of the original series, would be pushed to a later episode. In episode 9, another person who was in the truck comes out and manages to open up the back before Sasha shoots him, and a bunch of freshly turned walkers like Poncho Guy come crawling out and try to climb up the watchtower, with Rosita and Spencer trying to fight them off but getting trapped in the watchtower with them alone. Then the episode follows the rest of the events of JSS pretty closely, with Carol being a badass going around saving everyone's asses. I would also make some additions though, like since Sasha isn't out with Abraham, she would go to the armory to get guns from Carol, and then go back to the building where Denise is caring for the wounded and kill the wolves trying to attack it. And Aaron and Eric are giving more scenes trying to defend the place. Also back at the infirmary, Noah would be there, and he would be assisting Denise with trying to save people's lives and encouraging her, but of course they would end up dying because everyone hates Chris. I would also add that the wolves end up accidentally burning down the Alexandria's crops, which explains why they are so intent on rationing later. Meanwhile, things play out pretty much the same, with Rick making the plan to redirect the walkers, and more of the Alexandrians being left behind to be eaten. Rick would tell Michonne to just leave them behind if they can't go on, and Michonne would have a conversation with Heath, and I would add some dialogue where Michonne admits to Heath that Rick doesn't trust the Alexandrians, and he doesn't care about them as much as he does his own group, but that when she first met Rick, he tried to kill her. She tells Heath that it will take time, but Rick will learn to trust and care about the Alexandrians. However, he is still wrong, and she won't leave anyone behind. Meanwhile, Daryl, Abraham, and Francine would continue leading the walkers away. The episode would end with Carol crying after watching so many people die like in the original. In episode 10, Nicholas and Glenn would go to light the feed store and draw the walkers, while in a daring subversion of horror tropes, Michonne, Heath, and Scott would be the only ones to make it out alive, and all the white guys would die. Now let's talk about Glenn and Nicholas. Glenn's fake-out death in the original series was just stupid and utterly pointless, and I would just cut it out entirely. Nicholas's ultimate fate also just feels like a result of the writers not really knowing what to do with him. In my rewrite, when Nicholas and Glenn are running away, they get cornered and end up climbing into a building to escape, but Nicholas falls and injures his leg. Glenn goes back to save him, and they get cornered at the dumpster. Nicholas apologizes to Glenn for putting them both in this situation, but Glenn says that they're both going to make it out somehow. But Nicholas says that they can't both make it, and that he needs to sacrifice himself to the walkers as a distraction, just like his wife did, so that Glenn can crawl into the dumpster and make it through the hole they see at the bottom of the fence. Before Nicholas dies, he apologizes to Glenn for what he did and admits it was his fault that Noah's leg was lost and that his wife died. And he makes Glenn promise that him and Maggie will look after his daughter and give her a home after he is dead, to which Glenn says yes, and then Nicholas says his last words, "Thank you," before jumping into the walkers and shooting himself in the head, giving Glenn just enough of a distraction for him to climb underneath the dumpster and escape. In my version, Nicholas gets a full-fledged redemption arc, coming full circle from Glenn convincing Maggie to spare his life before, and I am also implementing a new plot point into the show from the comic books. In the comics, Sophia does not get separated from the group and get bitten by a walker. Instead, she lives past her mother Carol and gets adopted by Maggie and Glenn. And in my rewrite, Maggie and Glenn would similarly adopt Nicholas's daughter after he dies. Glenn manages to avoid the walkers, but he needs to hide from them, and so can't make it back to Alexandria with everyone else. Rick kills all the wolves who escape, and he can't start the RVs, so he runs back to Alexandria. The episode would, of course, deal with the aftermath of the wolves' attack on Alexandria, Deanna blaming herself, and the group there trying to put down the walkers that emerged from the people that the wolves killed, with one even attacking Deanna before Maggie kills it for her, a scene I'm stealing and changing from episode 5 of season 6 of the original series. Then, of course, it would show Morgan capturing the wolf guy, and in my rewrite, it is explicitly clear that he is the leader of the pack, unlike how it was kind of vague in the original. When Michonne, Heath, and Scott get back to Alexandria, Rosita and Spencer, still in the watchtower, try to distract the freshly turned walkers trying to get into the watchtower so that they can make it back to the gates. And then when Rick gets back, he also manages to make it through the gates, while Rosita and Spencer are still stuck in the watchtower, and the episode would end with people being horrified at the walkers at the gates of Alexandria. Also, in my rewrite, Enid does not pack up and leave Alexandria until she sees the horde coming towards it. In episode 11, things would play out relatively the same as in the original series, only of course since Spencer is still in the watchtower, it is Rick who tries to convince the Alexandrians to ration, and it doesn't go very well, but Heath manages to calm the situation down after the talk he had with Michonne. And there's an added scene with Maggie talking to Nicholas's daughter about how her dad is probably fine, just like Glenn is, but she says that her daddy told her that people like her and Glenn were bad people. Carl, of course, would find the JSS note from Enid in this episode. Meanwhile, since Spencer and Rosita are still in the watchtower, Rick and Deanna would be pretty enthusiastic about trying to get him back. And Spencer would come up with a plan for them to climb across using a rope. So the plan is implemented to get them back, and Rosita makes it back okay, with Spencer allowing her to go first. But when Spencer is going back, the rope comes off on his end, and he falls into the truck that is rammed through the watchtower. Surrounded by walkers climbing up onto the truck, Deanna is incredibly freaked out about the thought of losing her son, and without thinking, Tara jumps onto the truck to help him and fight off the walkers, and it is only after this that Rick becomes enthusiastic about saving them, and the group firing at walkers from afar. Rick manages to pull them both up onto safety on the wall. Deanna thanks Rick for saving Spencer's life, but then Rick, after going away from Deanna and Spencer, confronts Tara, saying that it was stupid for her to risk her life for Spencer, as he isn't a part of the group, which Spencer overhears. Tara then gives Rick the finger straight to his face, saying, "Fuck you. Protect and serve, asshole. That's the motto of a real cop." I changed this rope climbing scene from the original because, again, I don't really like how a bunch of people go off on their own and try to do stuff in this show without telling everyone. It's just really stupid, and Spencer's plan was pretty stupid in the first place, and I also always just felt it was kind of weird how Rick got mad at Tara for slightly bending over to shoot the walkers around Spencer originally. In this version, obviously, she's risking a lot more. Meanwhile, Maggie, Aaron, and Eric, because it was so weird how Eric, never appeared for nearly all of Season 6, go to see if they can find a way out of Alexandria from the sewers. With Rick's permission this time, because for real, characters need to stop going off on their own. And of course they fail. Maggie reveals that she is pregnant, and the episode ends with Glenn walking to try to get back to Alexandria. In episode 12, like in the original, it would dedicate a lot more focus to the characters outside of Alexandria, this time including Glenn and Enid, and the beginning of the episode would start with the Enid flashback scene in JSS. In my rewrite, the stuff with Daryl and Dwight doesn't actually happen here as it does in the original series, and instead that will be moved and changed for the next season. Instead, they end up meeting Timmy and the Dick Brigade on the road, or was it Jimmy and the Dick Brigade? I don't know, the Dick Brigade, and try to avoid them as they're attacked. Daryl doesn't get separated from Abraham, but he does go out to scout for the Dick Brigade to see if they're close to finding them, leaving Francine and Abraham to bond together and establish their relationship. She thanks him for saving her back then, and they both talk about what happened to their families in the past, and it seems like the two do legitimately have more in common than him and Rosita, with her also being from a military family, and admitting to Abraham that she actually enjoys the thrill of being outside and killing walkers, just like he does. It's Daryl who actually comes across the rocket launchers this time while scouting, which Abraham is just giddy about, saying that if they ever run into the guys that attack them again, they won't have anything to worry about. This will cut out the weird scene in the original where Abraham is trying to get the rocket launcher off the dead soldier and not just killing it first. Glenn ends up escaping the walkers, going to the place where he can signal back to Maggie and the rest of Alexandria about him being alive. And he finds Enid there, who went to retrieve the food and supplies there, unlike in the original where it was really weird how the two just met up coincidentally. She tells him about how the herd is surrounding Alexandria and it is all over now. Game over, man, game over. And so she ran before she was trapped there like everyone else, but she tries to, but Glenn tries to break through to her, telling her that it is not over yet. It's not over, man, not over. And Alexandria can still be saved. He tells her about what happened, he asks her about what happened in her past and tells her that she is afraid and scared, and so she is acting selfish, but the two of them need to work together to make it back to Alexandria so he can see his pregnant wife and fulfill his promise to Nicholas. But Enid ends up running off, but gets swarmed by some walkers that end up trying to follow her. That ended up trying to follow Glenn, and he saves her from them. Enid then asks Glenn why he even needs a teenager like her to help him in the first place, and realizes that Glenn is trying to get her to come back with him, more so for her sake than his. It is then that she decides to trust him and help him, and the episode then ends. In episode 13, things play out like in the original series, with Rick teaching Ron how to shoot, and Rick and Carol questioning Morgan about letting those wolves go. It is then after this that Morgan goes down to the wolf he captured and tells him about his story, after which he reveals that he has an infected wound. Also, the wolf leader is given significantly more characterization in my rewrite, with him feeling legitimately guilty that he led his pack to their deaths, so that he could get antibiotics to save his life. He tells Morgan that he needs to kill them all to pay respect for the pack that he lost, and explains to Morgan that his pack lived by a code not to put the needs of the individual above the collective. And they lived as a roving band of hunters and pillagers so that they could be freed from a life in service of someone else, implying that Negan once had the wolves under his boot, but they chose to run rather than fight, and continually move around after that. Much sort of like Oceanside did in the original series. Also in my rewrite, Morgan actually enlists the help of Noah to save the wolf's life, since he is still alive in my rewrite. And Denise is busy smooching Tara, that is. Sorry. Anyway, in this rewrite, it would largely be a Diana-focused episode, as I feel as though her character didn't get as much focus as she could have gotten in the original series. It would show her continuing to question herself, getting drunk and arguing with her son Spencer. She says that she failed as leader of Alexandria, says that her husband died because she didn't listen to Rick, and points out how, even now, Rick is completely taking charge of the situation, taking precautionary measures, reinforcing the walls and training everyone to defend against the walkers, while she cracked under pressure. But Spencer, of course, tries to reassure her, saying that Rick is just a thug, and after he showed up, everything started going wrong, and she is the one who created the safe zone and led everyone up till now, and she can't just let Rick take over everything from her. He also mentions how he heard Rick talking to Tara about how she shouldn't have risked her life for him. Then Deanna actually sits down and talks to Rick and Maggie and asks Rick if he is doing all this for his group or for Alexandria. Rick says that he doesn't want the Alexandrians to die, but in the end he will look out for his own, and Deanna tells him the same thing. And she tells Rick that she let them in to help them, and so that she could protect what she created, and tells Rick not to let her down, because in her mind, the creation of the Alexandria safe zone was her greatest accomplishment, because it was able to help people, and she wanted it to remain standing long after she was gone. And of course, directly after that, the watchtower falls down, letting all the walkers inside Alexandria. Everyone runs to hole up in their houses, while Maggie gets stuck on top of the wall, and the episode ends with it being revealed that Deanna has been bitten. In episode 14, things play out pretty similar to how they do in the original series, though with my addition of extra dialogue between Deanna and Rick. Rather than Deanna acting weirdly happy while she is dying and saying that she got to do what she wanted with her family, she's incredibly sad, and as it seems that everything she tried to build is now coming to a ruin. She officially passes the reins to Rick and says that he is going to be the next leader of Alexandria, but Rick questions how he can even do that after he allowed everything that happened. In my review, it actually having some self-reflection on how he failed and could have handled things better. But Deanna says that she isn't giving him a choice, and that the Alexandrians need to become his people now. Meanwhile, Morgan and Carol fight, and the wolf ends up escaping and capturing Noah. And I would actually add some dialogue where Carol tells Morgan that she has killed her friends before, people that didn't do anything wrong but still pose a threat to the group, so she will kill him without hesitation, but is clearly feeling the weight of trying to kill another non-enemy. And Rick and everyone else escape using the Gus technique. Deanna goes down shooting, and Glenn gives a speech to Enid about how they have to go back and save the people they cared about, with an added line about how he made the promise to Nicholas about how he would take care of his daughter. The episode would actually end with Sam, Jesse, and Ron all dying and Carl getting shot in the eye. In episode 15, things play out like how they do in the original show, only of course Noah is with the wolf guy and tells him that he was feeling like he was worthless and let so many people around him die rather than him. And that he thought he was a horrible person who didn't deserve to live, but he is trying to move past all that and change, and tells the wolf guy that it can be like that for him too. Before this time, Sasha shoots the wolf guy, allowing Noah to escape, thus adding to yet another person who died so that Noah can live. In my rewrite, Noah is basically the Rhino of the Walking Dead universe. However, this time it is Noah who gets back to Rick and actually ends up saving Carl's life from the gunshot, with this being what is able to at least somewhat pull him out of his depression and make him feel like he's worth something. And then, of course, Rick goes commando on all the walkers outside, trying to draw them away from where Carl is, and everyone ends up coming to his aid. However, although No Way Out might possibly be my all-time favorite episode of The Walking Dead, I think it could still use some additions. After people start joining up to fight Rick, we would see him start to develop a plan while he is in the middle of fighting, with him giving all the people who join him orders and telling them what formations to use, just like he was preparing them to do beforehand, and telling them that the inexperienced fighter should only ever deal with one walker at a time, and the people who get tired should fall back to the middle of the circle while someone else takes their place. Over time, Rick and his circle of fighters get to Denise, who helps Noah take care of Carl, who they put in a truck that they put in the center of them to hold weapons, food, and water while they fight off the walkers outside, going from building to building, calling on more fighters as the circle grows ever larger. A few people actually get bitten on their limbs, and Rick sends them to get amputated by Noah or Denise, saying that not a single person is dying tonight. We see Maggie and Glenn rescuing Nicholas's daughter after Abraham comes back to help them, and Daryl still does set the lake on fire, but the walkers don't just walk into it. Instead, it only serves as a distraction to get the walkers in Alexandria to cluster towards the light, while Rick and his circle of fighters make it to the armory, and they pass out guns to everyone, with Rick telling them that they need to conserve, and only use them when they are overwhelmed and need to clear a path. Tobin asks Rick what their escape plan is, to which Rick responds that they aren't escaping and are fighting to the finish. The walkers thin out over the course of the night, and then of course there is the legendary shot where it cuts to everyone killing a walker. Then Rick starts his speech to Coral, saying how after Deanna and Jesse's family, they didn't lose a single person, and it cuts to Michonne putting down Jesse and her family, and Spencer putting down his mother, which means that she doesn't somehow escape Alexandria, with Spencer going out to look for her like in the original show. The comic book actually had some dialogue for Rick's speech about how the Walking Dead are now a manageable threat with enough people, at least now that they are decayed and weak, and that people are the real threat now, which I would add back into the show, and I would also add Rick repeating Deanna's work about how he needs to treat all of Alexandria as his people now, and not just as meat shields to protect them, and that they can rebuild the community better and stronger and create something that lasts, unlike with the prison. He tells Carl to please wake up, and it cuts to the credits right after he holds Rick's hand. And we actually get the scene of Daryl, Abraham, and Rosita this time encountering the Saviors as they go back out on the road to check for walker stragglers as an end credit scene. Then the season ends there, and what an incredible season indeed. In my rewrite, I really wanted to keep the Alexandria arc as one coherent season, as I thought it was pretty damn good in the original, and I feel like I did a pretty good job. Oh, and also another thing that I didn't find a place to mention was the fact that the first 9 episodes of Season 6 of the original show take place over the course of like 2 days, I think, which was pretty ridiculous. And in my rewrite, I would have the events depicted over the course of those episodes take place over a whole week. I'm gonna get some water. Check if this is still recording. Alrighty then, now that we are finished with my rewrite of Season 8, now let's get into Season 9, where I will be ending this video off on. My gosh, it's been a while. And this season will of course be dealing with the introduction of Negan as a villain. I quite like the way Negan was slowly built up over the course of the second half of Season 6 of the original series, where things seemed gradually more and more desperate as the group realized just how many people he had working for him, and the tension just built and built until he was finally introduced, killing 2 fan-favorite characters. My rewrites for the season will be relatively minor, with the basic plot being the same, but I still do have some significant ones, so let's just get to it. In episode 1, I would actually add quite a few things that weren't in the original show, but were in the comic books, and take place after the Battle of Alexandria, which the show just brazenly rushes through. Like, Jesus will not be introduced in this episode, and it will start directly after the Battle of Alexandria last season, with everyone cleaning up the walker corpses, Carl waking up and Rick being overcome with joy, and Abraham coming back and telling Rick about the bikers they blew up on the road. Then Rick gives a speech to Alexandria about how their community has been battered, but they can come back from it. And then after the intro theme plays, there would be a montage of everyone rebuilding and bonding after the terrible events that transpired over the course of a few days, and Rick really taking charge. In my rewrite, there is actually a much longer time skip than the original series, and another winter passes by, meaning we get to see the beautiful snow in the montage. The episode would showcase Rick going out of his way to try to form connections and relationships with the Alexandrians as he puts them to work, with him truly now seeing them as a part of his group, and it shows him taking more precautions with the community, implementing many ideas that Deanna had, as well as his own, like constructing another watchtower and setting up guard points all around the wall, as well as continuing to train the Alexandrians in self-defense against walkers as well as humans. The episode would show Maggie and Glenn acting like a family around Nicholas's daughter more, but with her being sort of resistant to them, and Maggie getting close to expecting her own child soon, since it is a much longer time skip in my rewrite, and also a scene of Daryl also a scene or two of Daryl going to visit Lil Ass Kicker, who is finally able to talk by this point. Other characters have been developing interactions like Francine and Abraham, Sasha and Heath, who actually start up a relationship in my rewrite, with Noah perhaps being a little jealous of Sasha, and Carl and Enid getting closer and even having sex, a Thanksgiving dinner that all of the Alexandrians share, much more genuine than the dinner party last season premiere, to contrast with how things used to be compared to how they are now. Overall, just some good lighthearted fluff to contrast to the brutalizing season finale to come. There would be some serious stuff, though. Things would still be pretty tense between Morgan and Carol, since, she tried to kill him, and Carl would be trying to deal with his new life without an eye, and would be experiencing a lot of difficulties, and just like in the comics, he would be suffering from some memory loss due to a brain injury. The episode would show Spencer getting annoyed at the fact that Rick has basically just taken over Alexandria, since he should be the natural leader after his mom died. He talks to Rosita about how he has been in Alexandria since the beginning, and Rick just swooped in, acting like he owns the place. But Rosita defends Rick, saying he's a natural leader, and questions Spencer whether he thinks he could even take charge of everything. He challenges Rick to an election, and they have a simple majority rules vote where Rick wins, and in the end, Spencer ends up accepting it. Then we get a scene where with Rick going to Jessie's grave to mourn her and her sons like he does in the comic book, since I always thought it was just really weird how she is just never mentioned again in the original show. He then gets back home and talks on the couch with Michonne, who just came back with a run. He tells her about how much he misses her and about how he wished she didn't die. And then Michonne starts talking to him about how much she still misses Andrea, with both of them talking about people they loved but were technically never in a relationship with, and not having had sex for a while by now. One thing leads to another, and let's just say that they are not just roommates anymore. Then the episode ends there. In episode 2, it starts out with a funny scene with Rick and Michonne passed out naked on the couch together, while Carl comes downstairs to get cereal and sees the two of them and has a spit take, and they get up to trying to deal with him finding out in the most awkward way possible. And then, after the intro theme plays, Rick tries to discuss what happens when a man and a woman love each other, which of course Carl found out for himself last episode. Yeah, The Walking Dead is basically just an adult sitcom at this point. Carl says he's fine with it, as he basically considered Michonne family by this point. And he also mentions how his memories of Lori are pretty spotty, and most of the clear memories he has are from after the Walker outbreak occurred. Then, of course, Rick goes out on a run with Daryl, who usually goes out with Aaron, because are we really just going to drop that plot point? Daryl questions why Rick is so happy, and Rick responds, well, let's just say I did something I should have done a long time ago. To which Daryl responds, your beard isn't any shorter. Rick laughs and responds, Daryl, maybe if you had a beard, you'd have a lady in your life. To which Daryl responds, yeah, that's why I don't have a beard. Then the two of them go out on their run, acting like total dude bros, and their meeting with Jesus goes like how it does in the original show. Carl and Edith spend some time together outside the walls, and Carl asks her what their relationship really is. She tells him that she is incredibly glad Glenn convinced her to stay in Alexandria, and that she used to go outside the walls to feel comfortable, but now she feels more comfortable being inside the walls, and wants to stay there with everyone and Carl. And they go back and never find the Deanna Walker, since it's completely ridiculous how she got out of the house and went outside the walls, away from all the people she could eat in the original series. Then Jesus breaks out of his jail cell, making his way to Rick and Michonne's room, and tells them that they have a lot to talk about. They have their talk, and then the episode ends with him saying that their world is about to get a whole lot bigger. In episode 3, it would focus more on Abraham's relationship with Francine and Rosita, with him having an affair with Francine, and Francine telling him that he has to break it off with Rosita, who he is still fucking. And Rosita clearly knows that something is going on between the two of them. Then the group goes out to where Jesus says the hilltop is, and we get some more added badass Jesus scenes like in the comics, with Jesus easily breaking out of the handcuffs Rick put on him, taking on walkers without a weapon and evading Abraham and Rick when they try to get a hold of him. He says that if he wanted to, he could get a hold of one of them and put a knife to their neck at any time, telling them he used to be a member of the CIA. Also, in keeping with the changes I made to Maggie and Glenn's relationship in Season 5, in their conversation, Glenn and Maggie explained to Abraham that they actually tried to have a kid back at the prison, but it didn't work. So since they weren't using condoms or birth control, until Maggie finally got pregnant unexpectedly after they got to Alexandria. Maggie's struggle with having children will definitely be important in my rewrite. Then they make it back to Hilltop. Gregory acts like a total fucking creep around the much more showing pregnant Maggie, and then those guys show up to try to kill Gregory, and the group makes their deal with Gregory to wipe out the Saviors. One thing I would actually add is that Gregory points out the similarities to how Maggie's group is acting with how Negan acted, with them coming in and killing one of their own and asking for half their stuff in exchange for protection. But Maggie, of course, hits back, saying that Rick saved his life by killing his attacker, and that they are only asking for a one-time half payment rather than recurring, and that Hilltop can have half their guns and ammo after they take out the Saviors. Then the episode ends with them driving back to Alexandria. In episode 4, this is where we actually get the first introduction of Dwight, unlike in the original series where he was introduced back when Alexandria was still being attacked by walkers. Daryl and Aaron didn't come to the hilltop because they were out on a run together, because as I said before, I'm not just going to let their character interactions be completely forgotten about by the show. While out there, Aaron talks about how it is great that they met Jesus, and the group meeting with Hilltop could really change things for Alexandria. He also says that they should definitely try taking in new people. Daryl notices some fresh tracks that don't look like they are from walkers, and the two follow them and meet Dwight, who is alone, screaming for help after being surrounded by walkers. The two save him, and Daryl, being cautious, threatens him and asks him the questions. By this point in the series, Dwight has obviously had half his face burned by the iron. He tells Daryl and Aaron that he got his face burned by an insane maniac who stole his wife named Negan, a name that Daryl definitely recognizes, and he says that he ran away and has been trying to get away from him and his men, and says that Negan has about 60 of them in total. Daryl continues questioning Dwight and is very suspicious of him. However, Aaron is much more trusting and tells Daryl that even though they weren't observing him from afar first, they should still take him in. Daryl doesn't tell Dwight where they are from, and Dwight simply asks him to take him back to where his sister-in-law and friend were staying. But when they get there, they find burnt corpses, after which Dwight breaks down crying, saying that the Saviors are ruthless and won't stop until they have killed him. And he tells Aaron and Daryl that they should just leave him so that they don't get on Negan's bad side, and that there's nothing they can do to beat him. However, after this, Daryl actually warms up to him, saying that Negan is going to get what's coming to him, and that he will help him get his wife back. Aaron and Daryl tell him about Alexandria and how it has a lot of really capable fighters that could take out Negan, and they decide to bring him back there. However, right when they get to its gates, Dwight double-crosses the two, steals Daryl's gun and crossbow, shoots Aaron non-lethally, and escapes on Daryl's bike with Aaron's pack of all the photos of Alexandria in it. It turns out Dwight's charade was all an act, and he double-crossed them, faking his sister-in-law and friend's death to get them to trust him, and to get information to take back to Negan. This would definitely give both Daryl and Aaron a lot of guilt for the events that are to happen later, and it would also give the group a much more of a reason not to trust Dwight when he turns on Negan later, because he was a double agent. After the crew get back from Hilltop, Daryl and Aaron tell him about what happened with Dwight, and then Rick will of course proclaim that they have to kill them all this time, because they also know that Dwight will be going back to Negan to tell him where they are, and that they have to attack first so that they're safe. And he puts to a vote from Alexandria, with the majority voting to attack the Savior compound, but with Morgan, of course, voting against. In episode 5, Abraham decides to leave Rosita, and in my rewrite, Rosita actually figures out that he is cheating on her with Francine, as he tells her she sees the way they look at each other while they are at work. Then things play out the same as in the original, with Rick and the gang raiding the Savior compound, with the small addition that Tara is there with Heath and Glenn, and she also hasn't killed before, so she struggles with it. And Glenn, Heath, and Tara decide to stab the Savior's heads together, so they are all all only 1/3 responsible for killing a person. And my boy Scott, most underutilized character, also joins them in the attack on the compound. Jesus also goes with them to attack right out of the gate, and we get way more badass scenes from him than we originally got. Outside, Maggie does not come with the group, because what the fuck is up with the series and pregnant women constantly putting themselves in danger unnecessarily? Instead, she stays back at Alexandria, and Michonne actually came with, and stayed outside with Sasha and Carol. Sasha and Carol make fun of Michonne, saying that how she really needs to work on her aim, and that guns are a lot better than swords when dealing with people. However, the three women get jumped like in the original series, only by more saviors this time, and Michonne slices the arm off that guy that Carol shot in the original. The episode ends with Rick being told on the walkie that if they want their friends back, they need to do what they say. In episode 6, the events of the same boat play out, but things go a bit differently since it is Sasha and Michonne rather than Carol. Since it is Sasha and Michonne with Carol rather than Maggie, the Saviors plans to exchange one of their prisoners for the guy Rick and the gang took, and keep the other two, threatening to shoot them before help arrives. However, Rick doesn't seem particularly concerned about the whole situation, saying that those women they captured are three of the most dangerous human beings alive. I wouldn't be surprised if they kill them all by the time we get there, which is exactly what happens, of course. In my rewrite, Carol actually tells them that Michonne is pregnant, this time lying to get the Saviors to drop their guard. Speaking of Carol, I now have to talk about her character and how it was handled in the original series. I always found it really weird how after becoming so badass and so unapologetic about killing anyone who threatened her group, Carol just took a turn and wanted to get away from everyone because she didn't want to kill anyone anymore. In my rewrite, I would change how her character is portrayed at this point. She is able to see herself in Paula, but has no gripes about killing her or any of the other Saviors, and her having a panic attack and saying that she doesn't want her to die is just acting. Also, I would add more scenes of the Saviors being incredibly pissed about and angry about how Rick's group killed all of their friends at the satellite station, calling their group evil monsters. After escaping, the three women go on a rampage, killing all the Saviors one by one, more there than in the original, with this giving a chance for Michonne and Sasha to get some more badass scenes. However, before they end up escaping, they have the time to talk to each other while they are alone. Michonne, being Team Mom, said that they are all going to make it through this, and Sasha ends up questioning Carol, not really being thrilled about being tied up in the same room as her. She tells her that Noah told her about what happened with the wolf leader who she killed, and asks if Carol tried to kill Morgan. She then remarks on how this isn't the first time she has done something like this, as she also killed Karen and David, which ultimately failed to help in that instance too. Michonne tries to calm Sasha down, reminding her of how she tried to kill Gabriel/Noah, and reminding how they have all killed people and done horrible things that will keep them up at night, but they need to move past it together because killing is what will get them out of this situation. However, Carol said that she isn't like Michonne and Sasha, and she tells them that she has been keeping a list of all the people that she killed, trying to remember them, almost like trophies, because they make her feel powerful, rather than trying to forget them. She then finally admits that it was her who killed all the people at train car B at Terminus, to which Sasha and Michonne are incredibly shocked at her brutality. However, they manage to come together to escape and kill all the Saviors, and Sasha asks Carol who else knew what she did, to which she responds that only Rick did, to which Michonne is incredibly surprised by. And Sasha asks if Carol won't tell anyone else. Sasha says that if Carol won't tell anyone else, then she will. The savior that Rick and the group capture says he's Negan. Rick asks him where Dwight is, and he doesn't seem to recognize his name. Rick then shoots him and says that they will find Dwight eventually, and the episode ends with the group getting back to Alexandria and Carol holding the rosary she picked up and crying. In episode 7, as everyone gets back to Alexandria, there are more scenes of everyone going back to their loved ones. Michonne confronts Rick about keeping Carol's secret, and he says that he did it for the group, and then they go to confront Morgan and Carol over what happened, because just to be clear, Noah didn't tell everyone. Rick obviously still cares about Morgan, but he doesn't blame Carol at all for what happened, telling Morgan that he acted incredibly stupid. He acted incredibly stupidly, and saying that he might not want to kill, and he doesn't have to, but he can't stop them from killing, or they will kill him. After that, Carol admits to the rest of the group about trying to kill Morgan and killing all the people at Car B at Terminus. to which a lot of them are very surprised, and Tara is especially furious at her, calling her a horrible person. She tells them that she killed them to save them, and that every time she has killed people it was to protect them, but they are still very wary of her, giving her weird looks and not fully trusting her anymore. She then talks with Tobin, telling him she isn't who he thought he was, and telling him how she used to be, and then she has a heart-to-heart with Daryl, where she tells him that she isn't happy, and maybe hasn't been for a long time, but she just kept pushing forward and surviving for her own sake after she slit her wrists, in order to spite the world and prove that she didn't deserve to die. But in the process, she did things that turned her into a monster. Meanwhile, Michonne and Rick have a talk, and in the end, Michonne forgives Rick for keeping secrets from her, and there are more scenes of the two acting like a family together, with Carl and them even taking a black and white family picture together with Judith. This will be important, just you wait. Then, of course, Eugene and Abraham go off to get the bullet-making location, and I would actually add in some dialogue from the comics of Eugene asking if Rosita is available now, that Abraham broke up with her, and also congratulating him on moving on to a more suitable partner in his own Eugene way, of course. Meanwhile, a major change I would make is that rather than Denise going out with Rosita and Daryl, Noah actually asked to go out with Sasha, Daryl, and Tara, which I think makes a bit more sense as he has more experience dealing with walkers, though they still question whether he's able to go out with only a stump for a leg. Also, there's no weird plot point about Daryl not wanting to follow the tracks, and on the road they have more cute character interactions, like Noah and Sasha acting like brother and sister, and Noah asking Sasha if she is happy with Heath, and Sasha teasing him about him having a crush on him. Noah says that a friend he had lived close to there, and he wants to put him down like Tyrese did to his family when he couldn't. So they go out to find him, and after not finding him at his house, they go and find him in the place that he worked, locked up in the basement, looking like he had been tortured to death. Noah does the deed, and when they are getting back, the four have a conversation about why someone would have needed to do something like that to someone, and remark on how screwed up humanity is. Daryl, coming from a screwed up life, says that he knew people who would do that kind of shit before the world ended, and that the end of the world didn't just suddenly turn everyone evil. Tara admits to herself that she doesn't think any of them can really be called good anymore after what they have done, and that she might want to pass all her frustrations. Wait, sorry, typo. It is Sasha who admits to herself that she doesn't think that any of them can be called good anymore after what they have done. It is. Keep getting confused. Tara admits to herself that she doesn't think that any of them can really be called good anymore after what they have done, and that she may want to pass all her frustrations on to Carol, but she just aided in killing a bunch of people from the outpost that she didn't know. Noah admits that even after saving Carl's life and contributing to Alexandria, he still can't escape the fact that he should have died instead of so many of the people that died instead of him, and he still isn't very thrilled about getting out of bed in the morning. Sasha also admits that she struggles with finding the strength to go on after losing so many people, and that she isn't happy much of the time, but then she says Oscar's last words, "You just gotta keep keeping on," before promptly getting shot in the head by Dwight's arrow, and the episode ends with Dwight saying, "Hey, Daryl." Yes, that's right, I'm killing off Sasha rather than Denise. In the comic book, when Abraham gets shot in the head by Dwight, it's so incredibly shocking to see a member of the main cast get killed out of nowhere, but I honestly couldn't care about Denise getting killed in the original show, especially since Tara, the character who cared for her the most, wasn't even there to react. Dwight will still kill her, but it will be at a later date, and I think a series regular like Sasha, introduced all the way back at Season 3, would have much more of an emotional impact and shock if Dwight were to kill her right off the bat. In Episode 8, things would play out much like how they did originally, with Eugene's iconic dick biting, but with the group escaping the Saviors and running away from them, rather than chasing them off. Daryl and Michonne would tell Abraham and Tara to get Eugene and Noah back to the sanctuary while they get the Saviors to chase them instead, and say that they can handle themselves. Back at Alexandria, Carol warns Rick that with the way the Savior woman was talking on the walkie, she was acting like there were still a lot more Saviors out there, and they need to be prepared, directly after which Abraham and the rest show up at Alexandria, warning them all what happened to Sasha, and how Michonne and Daryl are still out there with the Saviors on their tail. Then, while everyone is trying to comprehend what happened, the Saviors show up at Alexandria like they do in the comics. They're in a plated truck and drop off Sasha's corpse at the gates, with a note on her saying, "It can just be her. Give up and give us your shit if you want all this to stop." Then they leave, and the group is utterly heartbroken, especially Heath, Michonne, and Noah, and they try to figure out what to do. Meanwhile, Glenn talks to Maggie about semi-killing all the saviors at the outpost, and Maggie tries to console him. Maggie then remarks on how she has been having pains in her abdomen lately, and is concerned it might be something wrong with the pregnancy, and Glenn says that they should go back to Dr. Carson at the hilltop. Maggie adds that it might even be a good idea to stay there and take Nicholas's daughter, at least until she has her baby. Meanwhile, Carol, incredibly concerned about Daryl, decides to go off on her own and find him. She leaves a note for everyone saying how if she gets lost out there, she doesn't want anyone to look for her. Rick gave her a choice to leave the prison or stay and face the consequences of her actions, and she chose to leave and is doing the same thing now. I am going out to do the same thing I always have. I'm going to kill people to protect you all. If I die, I die. If I live, I live. Then, of course, she kills all of those guys on the road. Morgan and Rick go after her, and Rick tells Morgan that it was her decision to leave, and she wouldn't want them going after her, rather than going to find Daryl and Michonne. But, of course, Morgan stays to find her, telling Rick that Carol doesn't see any value in her life, but the ability to kill, but he is going to save her from her darkness, just like he was saved. He also says that his no-killing philosophy is what kept him sane, and if it is danger to the people at Alexandria, then he doesn't belong in Alexandria, and they need to part ways, which they do, and the episode ends there. In episode 9, things really start heating up, and it shows Daryl and Michonne desperately trying to get away from the Saviors, but Dwight hits Daryl with an arrow, and doesn't shoot him point blank like in the original, because how was he okay after that? Seriously, I say that as if I didn't write Daryl getting shot in the leg 3 times and still being able to walk fine. Anyway, meanwhile, the Saviors find the guy who they were chasing like in the original, but my rewrite is actually one of the few wolves who didn't die at Alexandria, and Simon asks him, "Do you think you could keep avoiding us forever?" This would be used to showcase how the Saviors are a much more serious threat than the wolves were. Meanwhile, Rick gets back to Alexandria and tells everyone that they need to go out to search for Daryl and Michonne, but then, of course, Maggie starts having problems with her pregnancy, saying that she thinks her water might be breaking 2 months early, and she is in incredible pain that shouldn't be normal. Denise tries to care for her, but she says that she doesn't know what to do and never helped anyone give birth before. So then, of course, everyone decides to get to Hilltop and get her to Hilltop to see Dr. Carson. Abraham tells Francine he will make it back. Abraham tells Francine that he will make it back. Carl tells Enid to just survive somehow, like in the original. Glenn tells Maggie to hold his hand and that everything is going to be fine. And Tara tells Denise to stay back in Alexandria because it is safer there. Everyone else decides to go, including Tara and Heath this time around. Meanwhile, I would just decide to put most of the Morgan and Carol stuff that happens. Most of the Morgan and Carol stuff that happens in this episode. Of course, after Morgan patches her up, she decides to leave, but in my version, she says that it is because Morgan will only slow her down because of his no-killing rule. Then, of course, that Savior guy corners her and knocks her to the ground, and then the group encounters the Saviors on the road, and the episode ends with Simon telling Rick to treat his people well, as it might be the last day on Earth for anyone in the RV. In episode 10, we would get the Carol scene with the guy shooting her limbs. However, consistent with my rewrites for her character, I would change up her dialogue. After the guy starts tormenting her, she starts laughing like a maniac, saying that he should just kill her now. He asks her if she wants to die, and she tells him that she don't give a fuck, and should have died a long time ago anyway, but she remarks on how disappointed she is that she is going to meet her end by someone as pathetic as him. She then starts taunting the guy about how many people she has killed, and gives him all the gruesome and gory details, asking him if he has ever killed anyone before, with him telling her that she will be his first one. But then she tells him that he had better stop torturing her and just kill her, because if he keeps it up, she is definitely going to kill him, and that she didn't survive this long by taking her time with her victims. But then Morgan shows up and kills him, but unlike in the original, Carol isn't disappointed and is actually impressed by him. Then things play out how they do in the original series, with the main group constantly getting cut off on the road by the Saviors until finally being surrounded by them. Negan makes his famous introduction, and in my rewrite he says the F word every 10 seconds, like he does in the comic book, and I would add in lines in the comic book about him not wanting to kill people like Michonne and Glenn so he won't be seen as a racist, which I just find hilarious. And then, of course, he kills the cameraman and the episode ends. Then, in episode 11, we finally get to the grand finale, which in the original show was the premiere of season 7. I honestly don't mind the cliffhanger and ending of the Negan kill, unlike a lot of people do, which is why I kept it in the last episode, but I can see why people got annoyed that they had to wait like 6 months to see what happened. Instead, I would just have it be revealed in the finale, as it seems like a proper conclusion to the build-up of Negan. So how would I change this episode? Honestly, the original episode was a pure masterpiece, and probably the saddest episode of the entire show, but get ready, folks, because I'm about to make it even more devastating, because I have a fucked up mind. The episode would start out with a flashback of Dr. Jenner telling Rick that the day would come when he wouldn't be grateful for letting him go, and when Negan taunts Rick later in the episode about how he thought everything would just be peachy keen for the rest of their lives, it would show images of the Thanksgiving dinner they had back at the premiere. Now, I would keep everything that happens in the episode the same, including the non-chronological storytelling and the reveal of the victims, as unlike in many parts of the show that I don't really think have a reason to show certain events in flashback form, I think it really works to have Rick remembering what happened, as Negan reminds him of what could still happen. However, things change once it gets to the scene where Negan tells Rick to cut off Carl's arm. In the original episode, Negan doesn't make Rick cut off Carl's arm in the end, and was merely posturing to get the look of fear from Rick's face. However, in my rewrite, Negan is completely serious and counting to 10 until his men get started blowing Rick's friends' heads off. When he gets to 3, Rick chops off his own son's arm, which means Carl suffers Rick's fate at the hands of the governor in the comic books. I feel like this would be a good story decision, as it would serve to just fuck Rick up even more, and since Carl is going to die in all-out war, it wouldn't be super necessary to have him have both arms for after that. Negan brought the doctor from the sanctuary with him, and Rick begs Negan to save Carl's life. And Negan makes him swear loyalty to him, with also an added line where he forces Rick to say that he is his bitch, to which Negan responds, "Fuck yes you are." Then Negan ends up taking Carl back to the sanctuary to be treated, saying that he will bring him back to Rick if he behaves, and he brings Daryl back with him too, telling Rick that it sucks that he lost his right-hand man, but he can still have his son's right hand, and then throws Carl's arm back to Rick, who is utterly traumatized. He then leaves the group alone, saying that he will be back at Alexandria for their first payment, and he expects them to give back all the stuff they took from the satellite station. After this, there's a solid minute of silence, with none of the group saying a single word, and then Maggie screams out in agony. She is giving birth to her baby prematurely on the open road, and after it's out, she asks to see it. But then Noah gives her the news. It's dead. It was born prematurely, and Maggie is just naturally not very fertile, so she ended up losing it without Dr. Carson's help. Maggie just sobs uncontrollably, unable to stand, and then the dead baby comes back as a walker that Rick then puts down. So in this episode, Maggie loses both her husband and her child. Herschel will still be a character in the future, but not Glenn's biological son. I think Maggie losing both her husband and her child would give her more of a reason to want to kill Negan, as would Rick, since he was forced to cut off his own son's arm. The episode in the original was absolutely brutal, but in my rewrite, I made it even more brutal. You're welcome, you sick fucks. Then, of course, Maggie would be taken back to Hilltop to get treated before it cut into the credits, and it would simply linger on Rick's destroyed expression. The episode would end with Morgan bringing Carol in to meet Ezekiel and his pet tiger as an end credit scene. Alright, so that was Season 9 of my rewrite of The Walking Dead, and we are going to leave things off there. Thank you everyone for watching. This has been the Aromantic Shipper. Be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, check out my other videos, and of course stay tuned for Part 4 of my rewrite for The Walking Dead, which will be covering all-out war, the build-up to it, and the aftermath of it. And of course, always remember, just because you can't feel love doesn't mean you shouldn't want other people to. Bye!